Hey, what's up? Just want to thank you guys for watching our channel. Please hit that subscribe button. We had dinner with you and some folks last week at Lucale, and I know we had a little discussion about USA basketball, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into that and have our listeners get some insight from you about that experience. I don't want to say I defended you guys and the result, but I tried on the podcast to, I think, provide a little bit of context. And whether you want to call it an excuse or not, I said, look, here's the roster. Here are some players that could have been on the team. You look across the world and not everybody showed up, but a lot of the best players for their country showed up. FIBA is a different thing, right? I think what's interesting is taking a step back in your role versus what a lot of guys who go play for their national team, they get to take a step up in terms of their role, and that's an adjustment. On those two things, I don't want to get into the roster because I don't really give a shit about that, but like on those two things, the FIBA rules and how that game is played, and also just what I'm talking about in terms of roles and kind of figuring that out in 3 or 4 weeks, just the difficulty and the experience of trying to do that and win at the highest level.
Yeah. Firstly, there's no excuse for not winning, right?
I didn't say
there's
it wasn't.
none.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna it hurts us individually, collectively, as much as more than anybody. It's disappointing. You put a lot of time into those things, and you want the outcome that you want. You don't get it. It's very frustrating. FIBA's a different game. FIBA's it's a different game, and like you see guys playing for their national teams, like you said, they're you can't treat them like the players there in the NBA. You just can't, and just the flow of the game, the way it's played, the way it's officiated, minor rule changes, it's different. And there's different focuses, when you're playing a team. Everybody in the NBA sort of plays a very similar style of basketball. Like there has been a style of basketball that analytically or success-wise has dictated how other teams. It's a copycat league
for pretty much your whole career,
and it's a copycat.
Everybody's
league.
kind of played.
It's a copycat league. Eventually, 100%. Everything's going to catch up and evolve. But FIBA, the physicality is different, the way they play is different, and they don't really care, how the game's played in the NBA. They're going to play their way. So it was a super interesting experience to see that, and it opened our eyes quickly as we're playing against Slovenia and Spain in those exhibition games that they're like. Those teams run offenses very efficiently. Like you can tell they've been playing together for a long time. So it's like, okay, this is what we're in store for. Also, they crash the glass like, nobody's business, and they're just efficient. Like they're accountable. They play hard. They play for each other. So on a basketball, like on just a pure basketball side of things, like it's beautiful to watch, right? Like, it's basketball globally. Everybody's speaking different languages. Everybody looks completely different. And everybody's able to kind of play their own style of basketball. I do think, obviously, even the group, people say we didn't have this, we didn't have that, we should have sent this.
You guys had a bunch of awesome NBA players.
We had really good NBA players. There's no excuse not to win. But just the nature, it's basketball, the nature of the game. Like, I
think that you've said all these 3 things, and I just want to point them out in sort of, not necessarily in order, but just to kind of comment on them. So first, you mentioned the offensive rebounding. And it's interesting when you talk about a copycat league in the NBA. For the last probably 8 to 10 years, almost every team outside of the 5 men has punted on offensive rebounding. Now,
in the name of transition defense.
In the name of transition defense. Now, a couple of teams, I've seen some stuff, of course, coaches giving quotes about how we want to play differently this year. I think there could be a reversion back to, all right, we might send 2 or 3 guys to the offensive glass, especially with the amount of threes. Like, why are you getting back?
Right.
There's opportunities to get rebounds.
Right.
But that was apparent, right? That when watching the games, I said, oh, this is different. The flow that you talked about, that was eye-opening. Because I watch FIBA. I don't watch EuroLeague. Like, I watch full FIBA games once every 3 or 4 years, right?
Right.
And you get so locked into watching the NBA, the timeout situation, the fouls, the offensive flow, I think is huge. And that was the third thing I was just going to say. Like when you talk about the offense, the NBA, and I thought at times our team, right, would run an action, and then that's the possession. And you watch some of these teams play, there's an action that leads to another action that leads to another action. And so everybody's like, well, how did Team USA give up this many points? I'm like, because they're defending 4 or 5 actions on a possession. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not this again. This is not an excuse. You have a month, and it's a learning curve. And as NBA players, how many teams play like that? Maybe one,
right?
Maybe Golden State,
maybe, right?
Maybe it's a different thing.
So, yeah, and that's a huge part of it. And we understood that. Everybody understands going to FIBA. Like, we have 6 weeks to become a team, and that is not. We weren't blind to that. But everybody's trying to figure out their role. Everybody's trying to figure out where they lie in the rotation. The coaches are trying to figure it out. There's stuff to it that makes it more difficult than it may seem on the outside. But man, at the end of the day, I don't feel like we should have lost. We lost by 2 points, and we lost by Lithuania by 5 points. It's Canada went to overtime. These are not like runaway games. These are games where Against Germany, Obst, their 3-point shooter, had 9 foul shots off of threes.
Yeah.
Like just
3
little
plays.
Subtleties of the game.
3 plays.
You know what I mean? Little subtleties of the game. Minor lapses in what we're trying to accomplish. And they scored 113 points in a 40-minute game, or whatever it was, 110 plus points in a 40-minute game. And credit to those teams for being able to take advantage of those things. But it is eye-opening to the game of basketball because you get so conditioned. 82 games of NBA basketball. You're watching film every single day. You're watching games every single day. We consume hundreds and hundreds of games of NBA basketball yearly that our brains get so conditioned to just thinking that's how we play. That's just, everybody, everybody plays like that.
Do you think it tricks not just fans, but media, whoever, observers, when they see a guy like Valanciunas, like think about the Lithuania game, he plays differently in FIBA because the rules are different. So he's able to play differently.
He's able to play to exactly what his strengths are.
Yes, he's not getting targeted on defense the way he would in the NBA because of the way the court is set up.
Right. And that no defensive 3 seconds, like it plays into the way they want to play defense.
Yeah.
Which is, they're not out pressuring. They're not, you know what I mean? They're just
the reason everybody plays 5 out in the NBA is to allow driving angles and the ability to draw a second defender so you can get open threes and
3-point lines closer. It just the simple optics of a closer 3-point line shrinks the court. I watch little kids play on courts with all the lines on them, and them kids are standing at the NBA 3-point line all game, chucking NBA threes, and it's like, bro, that's not your line, but they see the line, and that's where they'll play. So I think it's kind of a similar situation in FIBA.
Haven't really asked anybody this that was involved. Every year, you guys get ready for training camp. There's a select team, and there's a week of scrimmages and games between the select team and the senior national team. Were there any young guys that stood out to you during that run against the select team?
I like the group total. I think there's a lot of young talent on that team. Cade Cunningham played really well.
Yeah.
Jalen Duren played really well. And, I think somebody like a Jalen Williams is just like, he wasn't doing anything spectacular, but he's so solid, skilled, understands the game really well for being young in his career. So those guys did a really good job to me. And I think the team as a whole, like they came in, they played hard in the scrimmages. And it's like, okay, yeah, these guys are the real deal.
Tommy, Jalen Duren. Getting a shout out.
Tommy
gave him some love on Monday's
Two guys on one team.
Yeah, right. Pistons are in good. With Coach Mon over there, they're in good hands.
What would you on Cade for a second? Just because I feel like we haven't really gotten to see him because of the health stuff.
Right.
How would you describe him right now? We have a lot of Piston fans who like the show. Like, what should they be looking forward to?
I think he's going to have a very solid control of games because he's a big-bodied point guard that's able to get to his spots. And I think that's what he's refining as time goes on, is just not being able to be sped up, controlling the flow of the game, getting to his spots, being able to score, being able to distribute. And that's the challenge he posed. You put somebody smaller on him, and he's definitely going to be able to just kind of get to wherever he wants on the court. So he looked pretty good in those scrimmages.
Cam, I didn't do this because you were coming on the pod this week. I legitimately had you as one of we did a show on Monday. I had you as one of my 3 guys that I think are poised for a breakout season. I had a bunch of different reasons why. But one of them was, I think, historically, for a lot of guys, they get the FIBA World Cup experience. They get the taste of this. They get to be around some of their peers. They get to be around coaching staffs, whatever. And there's in basketball, there's a learning through osmosis, right? You know, you see somebody the way they work, or you pick up something, a habit, you pick up something in film with a different coach, a different voice in your ear for the first time, and things click. I'm curious if there were anything that you really took away from this experience in a positive way, because I know we talked about some L's, so I'm
I
think the positive way.
I think the negative, I think I personally can take the negative of that feeling of like coming up short as, a huge learning tool, because I think back, and for me personally, it's been a long time since I've been disappointed in that way. You expect to win, you expect to play well. Like, you almost kind of take it for granted at a certain point. So it's like a real, a real kick in the butt. Like, get yourself going, get in high gear, like, turn this thing up. You know what I mean? Because it felt in the moment like a failure, It's like, man, we're all the way out here in the Philippines. And you were there, man. It was like, we're out there.
And you got food poisoning.
I did get food poisoning. I was down bad for a little bit. But, it's like, sometimes you need something like that to just give you a little motivation going into a season. But the positives of it, man, there is so much that you could learn just from being around them. Steve, Spo, Ty Lue, I'm talking to Jeff Van Gundy every day, Chip England. These are guys that, like, so much success accumulated between all these coaches and as players also. In the NBA, like, you learn a lot from them. You learn a lot about their mindset. You learn a lot about the guys that you play with, and just establishing those relationships, man. High level basketball for weeks. Like, we're scrimmaging each other most practices, so that's like high level scrimmages. I mean, we got 14 guys, whatever it was, 12 guys that are really high level NBA players. So it's really high level runs. You know what I mean? We get that every day. I think that USA, that national team experience bump is real. And I think, Mikhail also can testify to that, but I appreciated the experience as a whole for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. So I think I want to clarify both my comment and question and what you are saying. It seems to me like you're saying, I didn't just become a better basketball player than I was on August 2nd when I went to Vegas than when I got back. Like, It's not just about a 6-week period. It's really about the long-term effect of that experience and what it does to your hunger, your basketball intellect. Maybe you picked up one skill, I don't know, but it's all of that, and it's more of a long-term thing. We're not going to, Cam Johnson is not going to score.
You don't come back 6 weeks later like a brand new. Yeah.